Now that we've had a chance to kind of look at some of the tools that I use and kind of get some of the prerequisites out of the way, let's actually put this into application. We're going to start with just doing some beer pours on white, very simple, and then we'll be building up from there. I want to show you some of the mistakes that people often make in creating highlights and things in beer that just don't work, and then I'll show you several different ways in which I use to make beer look really good. I've got Tomas Artusi here with us. Tomas, you may recognize from many of our tutorials. He is a very trusted friend of the studio, and he's going to be working with us for the next few days. I rely on people a lot. I'll be talking with Tomas. You're going to hear me converse with him. I want his opinion. I want his set of eyes, because I've got a lot of different things that I'm going to be thinking about, and I want to make sure that somebody else is looking at for the things that may start to fall through the cracks for me. It's not necessary when you're working on your portfolio and kind of building things up, but as you get into this, I think it's really important to rely on the people around you, because they have a bunch of good ideas and they have an extra set of eyes where you might start to forget about something, they'll pick it up. So let's get going. We're going to start just by building a simple set. You'll see how that comes together, and then I'll walk you through what we're actually going to be doing on this first beer pour. So what we've got here, I've got my Sony a7R II. That's the camera that I'm going to be using. It's nice and accessible. Sometimes I do shoot with Hasselblad, but it's clearly not necessary. A camera like this does amazing work. So we're going to use the Sony a7R II. I've got that mounted to my Phoba stand. In studio, I love using Phoba stands. I've been using them since I was shooting with 8x10 film cameras. I really love them. They're not necessary. Clearly you can use a tripod, just something to keep your camera in good position and keep it nice and steady. All right, we've also got, this is, believe it or not, our set. One thing that's actually kind of interesting about working for another photographer, apprenticing for them, you actually can also pick up their bad habits. Previously, when I had been an apprentice, I always worked on a large set. Larger Formica, which had a lot of reflective properties. It was also harder to get lights in, and it just made the set more difficult to work around. I found that this trick is really helpful. If you need to widen this out, we can hot glue another surface onto it. Like when we get into shooting cans, we're going to want to put down a little piece of black Plex, which we can glue here and give us a little bit more width. I really want you to think about your set. You have to keep it compact. When you have to walk around and move, and you've got a glass there, you want to be careful with it. You want to make sure that you're not bumping it or bumping into other things that can cause that to fall or to become problematic. That being said, you're working with a really small surface here, so be very conscious of how you're working with this baby plate. All right, we also have our beer cart. I've brought out all the product that I'm going to need. I've gotten it lined up and kind of organized so I know which bottle is going to go with which hero glass. I have everything kind of right here at my ready. The beer pump is ready to roll. I've got a bottle opener and a can of air to make sure everything's clean. And the last thing is we're going to be shooting to the computer. We're going to be shooting into Capture One Pro, and we're going to be shooting tethered so we can see the images as they come up. So Tomas, I think we're ready to bring out some lights.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so a couple of things that we're going to be using. The background is just going to be a sheet of Roscoe. This is the Roscoe 3030. It's pretty thick and it does have a gridded texture. I like it because it actually really kind of flattens out the lighting, makes it a little bit more even. It'll still have a strong source. One thing you have to be careful of if you're using the 3030, that grid texture, if you're too close to your subject, it's actually going to show up in the subject. So you have to make sure it's back far enough or it's nice and soft and you don't actually see the texture. I'm going to start with my Para 88. Which is, for me is one of my most favorite lights. Clearly it's not the most inexpensive light on the market. There are a lot of other types of modifiers, everything from a Rololux to several different deep umbrellas that you can use that are far more cost effective, but they're going to give you the similar light quality. We'll probably wind up switching that out a couple different times. We're going to try it with a pan head and back as well, and then just go to a small reflector and maybe even grid that down so we can really kind of taper the glow that we're getting coming in through the glass. Up above, I'm going to have a pan head. This has got a Ceros monoblock on it, as does the Para 88. I've got a monoblock back there. I've just got a pan head or a beauty dish. It has a grid on the inside, and I've got my polarizing gel taped on the outside of it. So that's going to allow me to have that dual polarization that I'm going for. I'm going to first polarize the scene, the background, and then I'll wind up polarizing the light above. Now, as we're doing this, because we have so many video lights, it's going to be very difficult for me to actually see the highlights. So I'm going to do it by spinning it and taking a capture, and I can see where those highlights kind of disappear and how I can control them. Normally you don't have those kind of video lights. You can really just see the model lights that are available from the light, and that gives you really good control.
Do you want this right now?
No, let's bring it, I think let's bring it on this side.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll get out of your way. You might. Ugh. Got it?
Yep.
We can move this back a little bit too.
Is it too high?
Actually, probably not. It's probably all right. So we'll bring out our first glass. And one of the things that I see people do wrong all the time is they put a giant highlight on the front of the beer. And it just doesn't look good. Big highlights really can drive me crazy. I like them to be a little bit more defined and a little bit more subtle. I like highlights on the front of the glass because it helps give definition to that glass. So let's look at different ways that we can manipulate that highlight. So first things first. Which glass do I want to do first, Tomas? We're going to do this guy. This is the straight on. All right, so first things first, we're going to use this branded glass. So we're working for a local brewery. It's called Urban Chestnut. They have got some very specific ways in which they want to portray their beer. They don't want any condensation on their beer. They don't want any condensation on their bottles or cans. So we have to pay really close attention to that. I don't want to do something that isn't true to the brand. But because we're doing these first ones dry, it's a really great opportunity for us just to look at the light and how it affects the glass and how it affects the beer. So we're going to go ahead and start. We're just going to start with only the backlight just to see what it's going to be doing. I've put the glass out there. I want to go ahead and grab my first capture. The way I have tended to work, at least in recent years, I don't use a light meter anymore. I'm pretty intuitive about light and where it's going. I do recommend that you use a light meter, particularly in the beginning, so that you start to really understand those ratios. After you've been using a light meter for a long time, it kind of goes away. I have a very good sense of the distance of my lights to my subject and that power setting. Just intuitively, I kind of know where they're set. But we're going to start with just the background light. We'll build up one light at a time, and then we'll put them all together. You ready?
Yep.
All right, so first things first, that's a little bit hot coming through the background. It's also really even. That's okay. I want to show you that, and then we're going to show you how we can start to make that light a little bit more interesting going backwards. And I'm not quite rotated in the right way, so let's go ahead and fix that. And that's a half stop hot, isn't it?
Yeah. It's pretty blown away.
What's that?
Yeah, the RGB is in 255 already, everything, so.
All right. Okay.
You can like focus better.
Of course I can focus better. So I'm going to do two things here. One, I'm going to double check my focus. I do find that the electronic viewfinder can be a little bit difficult. I definitely check my focus on the computer. It's far more accurate. The other thing is I haven't set my polarizer yet. And if you look at the base of the glass, you can see that it's really, really hot. So let's try to go ahead and set that. All right, Tomas, let's take a look at this.
Yep.
Better on the focus?
Yep.
Now that base is really not giving me what I want.
This is the old one?
Yeah. But that is not changing at all. I'm really getting a ton of highlight off of that.
Yeah, but you're in 2.2 as well, so.
Oh, Jesus. Why am I there? Why am I there, Tommy?
How much do you want? You can.
Well, I've got to do it manually.
No, you don't. You can ask me. I can do it for you.
What?
Yeah.
No, you cannot change it there.
Yeah, I can. 4. You want, it's 4 now, right?
Yeah, because I changed it. It's a manual lens, but I think I want to go down even deeper. So I'm going to go to 5.6, which is going to make that lighten back really dark.
Yeah. It's working now?
Yeah.
You did 2 stops, right?
Yeah.
Even more, right?
Yeah, hang on a second though. I'm spinning the polarizer. I want to see if it's going to give me much of an effect on this or not. And it's really not taking down that highlight much at all, is it?
Yeah, as you rotate, the highlight rotates.
Yep. Man, I really want to kill that, and it's just not going.
You know, the surface here? Or?
Yeah. Those guys are really bright. Let's go ahead and let's lower. I'm going to lower this guy a little bit.
You can help.
All right.
Want me to put straight on?
Yeah, and will you tip it up a little bit for me?
Yeah.
Wow. So one of the things I'm noticing, the base of this glass is really not flat. It has a convex shape to it. So I'm getting that kind of roundness, and it's not killing all of the highlight that I want in that. So we may have to do a couple other things to manipulate it. I'm first going to try dropping the light a little bit so it's not coming at such an angle of incidence. Hopefully that will help it out a little bit. That's going to be better. So what I'm doing, I'm slightly moving my polarizer back and forth, right? There's a lot of light out here, so I'm just kind of training my eye on the one spot that I want to kill that light. And really and truly, I'm looking at this plane. I know that that light is affecting the entire base of that glass. It's a little bit hot, it's more than I want, but that's where I'm setting my polarizer to diminish that as much as I can. All right. Let's go ahead and, is this guy on? This guy's not on, right?
Not on.
All right. Let's get that light on. Be light number 2. Let's see what it does. Really, we're going to want to get beer in there pretty quickly so that we can really take a look at it. That's not having much effect. What's that power setting?
It's really low. How much do
I bring it up to 4L. All right, so I put that light straight overhead. It's going to help light the top of the beer. I want that beer head to have a nice, good amount of light. We've got to be careful of it because it's going to be much lighter in tone. So when we get the beer in there, we're really going to have to pay attention that we're not blowing that out. Up a little bit. Just a skosh. All right, that's good. That added just a little touch that I like. Okay. And then last but not least, we're going to add in this strip bank. This is where I see people make mistakes all the time. I will often see people put in a big, broad highlight that I just hate. This glass is really challenging because it's moving in so many directions. The base is wider and fatter. It tapers. It has a kind of a hip shape to it. So it's going like that, and then it's coming up to the top, and the lip is kind of flanging out again, flaring out a little bit again. It's got a lot of different curves to it. What does that look like in terms of highlight? Say again?
Just did another one because it was very low.
All right. We're still, right now we're kind of washing everything out because that background, everything is coming through it, so you're not seeing the highlights as much. It's time to get some beer in there.